In spite of new laws in Russia stating that students with special needs should have equal access to education opportunities, the implementation and change on the ground has been limited and slow, leaving an estimated 500,000 children at risk of not being educated.
And that local governments and regional and federal government have not done enough to ensure people with disabilities have accessible housing and transportation that would allow them to be in their mainstream schools, should those mainstream schools be able to have the accommodations to accept them.
That was Jane Buchanan, the Associate Director of the Europe and Asia Division of Human Rights Watch, whose study noted particular difficulties that students with special needs faced when trying to obtain education in Russia.
The really key issues for children is simply, physical access to buildings, but also the kinds of accommodations that schools are providing for children with disabilities. International law requires that governments provide reasonable accommodations to make it possible for children with disabilities to study in mainstream schools in their communities. So this may be, things like Braille readers, teachers' aides, all kinds of different methods to help facilitate every learner's individual needs.
These problems are only exacerbated when children are in care of state orphanages, now called social development centers, where many are deemed uneducable.
So, plus in a special needs orphanage, that is where we do have a problem. And the problem is with education. So the education is practically non-existent for children that do have cerebral palsy or Down syndrome. And if they do have certain lessons or certain, let's say, a form of a school, it would be so bare minimum that it does break my heart that once they're 18 years old, the children who are in the special needs orphanages, which is the typical age of being aged out or emancipated, those children will never be successful. That's how the government perceives them. And I hate to say it, the society does the same thing. They perceive them the same way. So as a result of what's going to happen typically in a situation like that, children who are aged out of the orphanages, special needs orphanages, will be transferred to the special needs orphanages for adults, where they will live there till they die.
Alex grew up in the orphanage system in Russia, where he found himself abused and labeled as mentally challenged, a label he says many children can avoid if they had love and support.
Is that due to a lack of parenting, love, and training and the proper attention, children end up developing slower than the children who are raised in a normal, healthy family environment.
Luckily for Alex, he not only graduated high school, but he managed to obtain a business degree after being adopted by American missionaries at the age of 18. And he now volunteers in orphanages back in Russia, where he says staff needs support and hope.
I remember I was visiting that orphanage, and I brought a book, just a children's book. And I started reading to those kids. And of course, you have children that would be making noises. You had children that were sitting in their own poop in the diapers because they haven't been changed in time. On time, or they would be sitting there and just drooling and all these kind of different things, The things you see, this is definitely not for faint-hearted, It's tough. It is very tough. And that's just, that's not even the word to describe, So, and I started reading the book, and I will never forget, there's one nurse that came to me and she said, "Why do you bother?"
Mary has cerebral palsy, but that hasn't stopped her from pursuing her dream of becoming a human rights lawyer. She already speaks 3 languages fluently and is currently working on her degree at a normal university after excelling in one of the specialized schools for students with special needs. She says her success is what motivated her.
The right to have better education is the right to have better future, and we all deserve it. So that's why I take a risk, and that's why I decided to try to enter this university, because when I was applying, I knew that I will face a lot of challenges. I knew that this place is not accessible. I knew that probably I'm going to be the only one student with such disability, but I can do everything. I can go to Moscow State University if I want. I can go to any university, and it's university's duty to be accessible for me. It's not my problem. I can try to, I can do my best to help them to solve this problem so that more students with disabilities can apply, but it's not my problem, that I can't be like a regular student. It's their responsibility to help me. This is how I see it.
Though she makes her way around the university, she says it isn't easy, and there needs to be change to make normal schools more accessible.
And right now I'm studying international law and human rights law. And I'm the only student here with cerebral palsy. There is no other students who have some disabilities here. I don't see them anyway. I would say that, from my experience, I would say that the society itself is ready to accept such students with special needs, but the environment isn't ready. There is no ramps. If you're using a wheelchair, there is no way you can get to the second floor, for example, if you have your classes on the second floor.
No one can say exactly where to start when it comes to fixing a problem so complex and embedded into the history of the society. But many are trying. Reporting from New York City, Jenny Abamo, IEN.